For me, 2024 was the year of rediscovering reading. What was before a common hobby really escalated to become my life. This year, I ended up reading 52 books and counting, mostly across fiction, but a few nonfiction books snuck in there too. It started off very literary fiction forward, and after previously casting fantasy aside, I actually ended up finishing the year on a bit of a fantasy phase. There were 5 books that were just a cut above the rest. My S-tier 6-star reads, if you will. Let's talk about them. So like I said, there were 52 books that I read this year, and 5 of them were just a cut above the rest. Let's talk about them. First up is The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. Now, long books generally scare me, and The Bee Sting is 700 pages long, but honestly, it never felt like that. It is such a page turner. It was a Booker Prize finalist from last year, and it goes through multiple POVs of different members of a family. It really shows you how hard it is to put yourself into someone else's shoes and truly understand the world through their perspective. It's such a good book, and I think a lot of people will find the themes and certain family dynamics to be super relatable. So in the theme of reading Booker Prize finalists from last year, I also read and loved Prophet Song by Paul Lynch. It was incredible. It is about a woman, Eilish, for whom trouble comes knocking on her door, literally. And her life gets turned upside down, and she's kind of left reacting to what happens as a wife, a mother, and caretaker of her older father. It's super powerful, relevant, and beautifully written. I actually also saw Paul Lynch in person. He actually came to the Bay Area for this talk where he talked about the book and also read a little bit from the first chapter. It was super cool, and there was something that he mentioned which will always stick with me when I think about the book. It was this image, and I want to say the reference was Virginia Woolf, but honestly I can't really remember. This was some time ago. This image of a person walking through darkness with nothing but the light of a candle in front of them. And this, I feel like, perfectly captures the story and the journey that Eilish goes on. Yeah, it's great. So next is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. And to be clear, the contrarian in me is a little disappointed that I loved this book as much as I did because of the overwhelming praise I feel like it got from New York Times 100 Best Books of the 21st Century, which it released earlier this year. But it's true. I loved it. It's about these 2 young girls and their really complex relationship with one another, where they love each other, can be obsessed with each other, but then also envy each other and compete and compare themselves to one another. And I think it creates this super realistic depiction of these 2 young girls and the relationships that we can have with one another that are complex and impact how we interact and how we grow. So the next book really surprised me, and I feel like every year there are always those books that really defy the expectations that I have going into them. And it's Dune by Frank Herbert. So for context, I saw the Dune movies and absolutely loved them. So much so that I was like, I need to read the book in order to get more of the Dune universe. It is long. I think it's like 800 pages. So that definitely scared me off to begin with. But to be honest, I'm pretty sure I finished it in like a few days because it is such an easy read. It goes by so quickly. And the most surprising part was the book was even better than the movies. So I feel like the movie was more of a classic hero's journey with Paul sort of being depicted as like the chosen one. But I feel like the book gets more into the politics and the influence of people's self-interests and how they use religion and populations to achieve their own goals versus just like destiny. But it's super complex, and actually I feel like a really relevant message for people today. Highly recommend. So the last book to round out my 6-star reads for the year is Babel by R.F. Kuang. See, I'm a fantasy convert. I went from like not liking or thinking that I didn't like fantasy books to now making half my list fantasy books. But Babel is so good. It's about Robin, this kid who gets brought to Babel, this fictitious magic language department in Oxford, where he learns magic, uncovers secrets, and ultimately discovers his own power. I actually feel like it's a great read if you loved Harry Potter. Similar structure, there's magic, but kind of a new spin with some complex themes. But yeah, those were my top reads for the year. If you haven't read any of them yet, I highly recommend you check them out, add them to your TBR for next year. And if you have, I would love to hear what you thought about them in the comments below. Thanks, see you next time.